Hey folks, my name's Ed Trevors. My pronouns are he, him, and his. I'm an Anglican priest serving in the beautiful parish of St. Margaret of Scotland that sits on the ancestral and on the unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. Gwe. By now you know that Russia has invaded the Ukraine. What do you say after that? Russia has chosen to inflict a war upon the people of Ukraine. I've had a lot of different conversations today talking about this. A lot of people are feeling something about this, whether it's anger or sadness or anxiety. One of the things that I was asked was, where is God in all this? You say there's a God. If there's a God, where is God in all this? Why is God allowing this to happen? Why isn't God stopping this from happening? Why does God allow any kind of suffering? Why does God allow any kind of disaster? Why does God allow war and violence and strife and turmoil? There's a book out there that is my go-to at a time like this. It's the theology in that book that I fall upon. It's written by a guy named Harold Kushner, a rabbi named Harold Kushner. I believe the book was written in response to the death of Rabbi Kushner's son to leukemia. It's called Why Do Bad Things Happen to Good People? We're going to be talking about it a little bit later on, I believe. The basic premise is God doesn't allow bad things to happen to good people. Bad things just happen. Good things just happen. That doesn't necessarily answer the question, though, where is God in all this? For that, I rely on an article that was written in my seminary's monthly or quarterly magazine. I believe the article was written by, or maybe he wasn't written by, but the person the article was about was a guy named Peter Kent, who was a longtime Canadian journalist and TV anchor. And he was talking about his faith, and in particular he was talking about his faith as a journalist. All over the world, he was in all kinds of different places. He was in war zones, he was in areas affected by famine and natural disaster, places where the political temperatures were incredibly high. He was everywhere, and he covered all kinds of stories. And in that article, and I wish I could offer it. I'm going to see if I can find a digital copy of it. But in that article, he describes seeing the presence of God in all of those situations. No, it wasn't like an angel coming down and defending people like the angel of death came to defend Jerusalem for King Hezekiah. It was something else. Something much more nuanced and something much more subtle. What he says is that we went to all these affected areas. And every time we went to an area that was affected by war or natural disaster, some kind of tragedy, every time we went to one of those places, we were never the first people there. The first people were always the aid workers. People who'd given up a part of their life to travel to these cities and villages and these countries to offer themselves to help the people that live there, to help them get through whatever hell they were having to live through. So they were always there first. These aid organizations. Many of them, he says, were Christian, but that doesn't matter. He said the journalists would always get there, and the aid workers would very lovingly, without any kind of consternation or malice, would look at them and say, "Oh, You made it. You finally got here. For Peter, this was God. This was the hands and the feet of God, active and present in the world. If we want to see God at times like this, if we want to see God in places like Ukraine, look for those people who are moving in the direction that many others are not. Look for those people, look for the doctors and the nurses and the orderlies who are working in those hospitals in the cities that are being directly impacted by the fighting, who don't care what the color uniform, what kind of uniform, what flag a person happens to be marching under. They don't care who it is that's sitting on the table in front of them. They just want them to live and to be healed. Look for those neighbors who are sharing everything that they have despite the fact that they might not have anything tomorrow. Sharing that with their neighbors who have even less. Look for the people who are speaking words of wisdom and peace and calm and love into the lives of all those that they encounter. Look for the aid workers, foreign and domestic, that are right now trying to figure out, desperately trying to figure out how they can bring their services in to help those people that are affected. The presence of God. 44, last night, 44 Russian cities, at least 44 Russian cities had massive protests. Over 1,000 people arrested, protesting the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Russian police arresting Russian citizens who were protesting the Russian invasion of Ukraine, speaking up and saying, "No war, only peace." The presence of God is found in this place. The presence of God is found in the work of people's hands, their feet, the people who are willing to sacrifice what they have for the sakes of others, the willing to risk what they have so that others would live. God is present in the hearts of those people who are denouncing what their government is doing. God is present in the hearts and in the minds of all those people all around the world right now that are trying to mobilize. And in the hearts of all those people who are praying and are desperate to help out in whichever way they possibly can. The presence of God is found wherever love is found. May the Lord bless you. May the Lord keep you. May the Lord's face be made to shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord's countenance be lifted up to you. May you always know the peace of being in the Lord's presence. And I pray that we would see God's presence in the hands and the feet of our neighbors as they do what they can to help out the people in Ukraine. I pray that we would see God's presence in those who are speaking up against this attack, against this invasion, against the use of force, against war. I pray that we would feel God's presence in our lives as we feel an increasing need to offer whatever it is we can, however it is we can, whenever it is we can, to help those who are being affected and impacted. Amen. Nemultus.